At Tottenham Supercharger, we recently came across this sign. Previously open to all EVs with CCS compatibility, they have returned it to Tesla only. The reason was that far too many people were using the Supercharger and they had massive queues stretching out onto the road at peak times. The message was clear: if you build it, they will come. Offer EV drivers fast, reliable, really cheap EV public charging, and you get more customers than you can handle. Having filmed at many Superchargers that are open to all and spoken to many of the drivers using them, a simple fact was plain. Many of them cursed Elon, hated Tesla, but cursed under their breath as they charged up at the lowest price for miles around. Money talks. I'm Dave, this is Dave Takes It On. Please take a moment to subscribe. Well, for many viewers, they get so impatient with me when I say there's a price war underway because they don't see it happening instantly. These days, we all expect instant in this modern society, from emails to family on the other side of the world to next day delivery on most products I could ever wish to buy. Well, the idea of a slow burn revolution is becoming alien to many, but EV public charging is in itself a slow process. From identifying the site to getting legal permissions, then on to planning applications and electricity supply applications, it can be 1 or 2 years before the first JCB arrives and begins digging. That process may be quicker, often less than 6 months of actual construction on average, than the final wait for the DNO to actually connect the mains electricity supply and turn the whole site on. It is not a fast process, as Birch services on the M62 proved, as that took the best part of 3 years. And in that 2 or 3 years, we find much that changes. First, there are far more EVs on the road. The market is growing. But the national grid gets the greedy little mitts on the boom by massively increasing the cost of electricity. See, we have price caps. Commercial supplies have no price caps at all. And then they seem to have invented an additional extortionate charge: continuity of supply. It goes like this. Yeah, we've given you a supply, but if ever we run short at peak times, we're going to cut you off and supply only those customers that have paid us a premium for being priorities. Unless you want to pay us as well. Well, it's outrageous, but a fact of the modern capitalist way of business. Grab what you can. And that also coincides with the big money entering the EV scene. Private equity funds, green investment funds, private pension funds. They've arrived epitomised by BlackRock, that now owns pretty much a bit or a lot of everything. Well, I need to explain owns, because owning a company is no longer the done thing. Instead, investment funds like BlackRock buy up masses of shares in a company, bundle them up into further smaller funds that they then sell on to private investors. With their money, they often have the controlling interest. Well, in simple terms, a limited company puts itself up for sale but sells itself off in little bits. They call those shares. If you buy all the shares, you effectively own it and make all the decisions and take all the profits and losses. If you don't buy all the shares, you're a part owner. If you own more than 50% of the total number of shares, you control the company, and what you say goes, because no matter who else owns shares and what direction they want to go in, they can't outvote you. Well, if no single person or fund owns more than 50%, then they're all shareholders, and important decisions regarding, say, the direction of the company will normally go to an open vote among shareholders. Life is never that simple, because a fund like BlackRock will set up multiple other funds, green funds, retail park funds, overseas funds, and many, many others. And they themselves will also invest in companies. It's a complicated world out there, but the message is clear. The money giants have moved into EV charging, and they invest for one reason only. The title is the clue. They want a return on their investment. When they moved into the EV charging world in a big way last year, it changed the EV charging scene they were involved with dramatically. It needed to make a profit, and a very healthy one, obviously for them. At the same time, the supermarkets have finally begun to realise that if all the cars in the UK eventually become EVs, their petrol stations will become totally redundant. They're a bit late in the day, but they've realised that EV charging could easily take over in time, but they now hit the 2 to 3 year delay. Yeah, some have started their own EV charging company, called a CPO or charge point operator, like Sainsbury's with their Smart Charge. They own the chargers, they bought the electricity supply, so they're free to charge whatever price they choose. The idea they're going to choose a really cheap price right now is just absolutely absurd. The market for EV charging is tiny compared to the petrol and diesel sales they already have, and well under 5% of all the cars are EVs. Many of them charge at home, so they're not even potential customers. Now, that's not going to change overnight, as we only sell 2 million new cars a year, and there are 35 million cars on the road. It's slow progress. But in time, it will change, as it has in Norway. Well, to put that one into perspective, they now pretty much only buy new EVs, but still only a quarter of the cars currently on the road are EVs. The rest, about a third of them, are diesel and just over a quarter are petrol. New ICE car sales are pretty much extinct, but they're still there and they make up over half of all the cars on the road. The same applies to China. It's slow progress because the market is so absolutely huge. But petrol and diesel sales are collapsing, partly down to the incredible efficiency of the new tiny engine cars with their 3-cylinder 1-litre engines, but also down to 20% of the new car buyers just giving up petrol and diesel forever and moving on to electricity. The writing is on the wall. Then into this turmoil we find Tesla. It had the foresight to realise that nobody in the right mind will buy an EV if it has a tiny range and cannot charge it up quickly, reliably and cheaply on a road trip. As a private, profitable company and having a strong leader with a vision right from the start, Tesla built up the world's largest, most powerful, most reliable and cheapest EV charging network and offered it free and exclusive to all Tesla buyers. That vision remains to this day. Legacy Auto, the old petrol and diesel giants like Ford, Vauxhall, Mercedes, Toyota, they took the opposite stance. They didn't build and run petrol stations, so they weren't going to build and run EV chargers either. Let someone else do it. But governments began to come under increasing pressure because they wanted to transition to EVs, and it's mainly for environmental reasons because the fumes and gases and emissions from the exhaust pipes of ICE cars were killing their citizens, and the pollution was off the charts and well in excess of their legal agreements. Without the drive behind it from the legacy auto, the public charging scene, excluding Tesla, was a pathetic shambles. So to remedy this, governments simply took the instant easy route and they offered Tesla subsidies and grants and tax exemptions to allow other cars to use its existing worldwide network and then to build all future superchargers, which are open to all to use. Tesla still has the aim to transition from fossil fuels to renewable, so they saw this move as not only financially beneficial, but also totally in line with their targets. Tesla to this day is the only large-scale company that produces not only more renewable, clean, green electricity from their own sources than they use currently, but also has produced more than all the electricity it has ever used, including building the factories and building and running the entire world supercharger network. So the Tesla supercharger network was released onto the world's non-Tesla EVs. But it wasn't that simple. Because Tesla is primarily a computer company, just happens to sell computers in the form of cars, they were not immediately suitable for non-Tesla made cars. Tesla's computer was the same one present in the factory, in the head office, in the chargers, in their cars and in the apps. Everything just has one system, one software. A single system perfectly matched. Other EVs like Mercedes, Renault, Ford, they each contain multiple little computers and chips, each running different software. So the chargers for non-Teslas could not simply be used, as they were designed and built to be used. Well, initially the workaround was an app, but even that gave a problem, because now they could actually talk to each other, but they all had different connectors. Think of it a bit like trying to charge a Samsung phone with an Apple Lightning connector. They could not even plug them in. Well, in short, they eventually resolved the issues, and now their superchargers were capable of charging all cars equipped with CCS2 sockets. But one final hurdle remained. The superchargers were intended for use only by Teslas, and many had very little spare capacity to take an additional influx or potential deluge of other EVs. So some superchargers were designated by Tesla as Tesla only and remain so to this day. Many of these simply cannot handle the additional load, and with increasing EV sales, many never will. Well, the final part of the puzzle was that Tesla deliberately made the supercharger network really cheap. They did that first by making their own chargers. They designed them, built them, everything on mass production, one single model at a time, not a range of them, and it was optimized for really low prices and really low installation. In America, these are pre-installed onto concrete blocks 3 at a time, and those blocks, they just drop them off at the site, plug them in, and they're virtually ready to go. Installation on site was incredibly quick and cheap. Well, second, they had already a much larger customer base than all the others combined, and so they had a larger market, so economy of scale featured heavily. Third, as an energy generator and producer with their Megapack company, this allowed them to buy and sell electricity as a business in itself, and the software seamlessly integrated these into the Tesla infrastructure. Additionally, also being utility companies where they operated, they were able to dramatically reduce the cost of providing their superchargers with electricity, making them much cheaper than their competitors. Well, the superchargers open to all, therefore, offer a design, function and reliability that's the best in the world. And that was at a price significantly cheaper than anyone else, even to this day. So on their launch, they became, well, amazingly popular. The average price was often less than half that of their competitors. Now, unfortunately, that did mean that many of the old superchargers just cannot cope with the huge surge in demand. Now, to answer that, Tesla launched a new charger, the V4, that answered all the shortcomings, and also now planned their new superchargers to be able to handle the much increased demand. So previously, superchargers were probably 6 or 8 bays. Today, that's very much nearer 16 to 20 bays as a standard. But that still leaves many old superchargers struggling. There's a massive replacement program underway, in addition to installing huge numbers of brand new superchargers that will address that in time. But people are so impatient these days. By the way, if you got this far, you probably like the content, so for more, please consider supporting the channel with a Patreon or YouTube membership. They start from just $1.99 a month. Details for those, they're down below in the description. Well, Tesla's infamous for active pricing. They hate queues or waiting lists, so they regularly adjust their prices to heighten or dampen sales, often day by day. They do this with their cars. They are now doing this with their superchargers. So, in the short term, there is a supply and demand issue. Now, bring back the private equity companies with their ownership or control of many thousands of chargers themselves, all of them needing to make massive profits. Add in the arrival of supermarket chargers who are just feeling their feet, but quite capable of using their EV chargers as loss leaders, operating even at a loss if they're used to drive new customers into their stores, which is where they make all their profit. Then add in some newcomers who are starting to operate EV chargers totally off-grid. They build their own PV and wind farms with grid-connected batteries, but they connect the EV chargers directly to take advantage of almost free electricity, not connected to the grid at all. These farms effectively make their money buying and selling electricity to and from the grid at wholesale prices, and therefore can supply their own EV chargers connected into that wind turbine with electricity at or about wholesale rates. That's really cheap. And then we still have Tesla. And we have an incredible melange that was going to take a while to resolve. But this battle cannot go on indefinitely. Tesla's not going to suddenly hike the prices. Already has monopoly. It's had that for years and it hasn't done so. There is no reason to change now. There will be scaremongers out there. They got no evidence. Renewable energy is now significantly cheaper than any other production method, so we're likely to see a massive increase in renewably powered chargers. And if the UK national grid won't play ball, BlackRock is, after all, the single largest shareholder and looking to make a huge profit at minimum cost or investment. More CPOs will arrive that operate totally off-grid, and that will allow them to keep prices really low and make a very healthy profit. And at low prices, you get customers. The supermarkets know this. The private equity funds don't seem to know this yet. The battle is on, and the only outcome is cheaper EV charging prices for all, but not without a fight. The private equity funds will milk this for every penny and cent they can for as long as they can. But as the cheaper chargers increase, their market will collapse. And we see this today, where the larger ones have increased prices by 5 to 10%, while the new ones, like Tesla's and those fully off-grid, they're selling at half that price. Amazing. If you want to see where this ends up, look at your corner shops, or lack of them. The vast majority of shoppers now use supermarkets for their main shop because it is just so cheap and convenient. Corner shops now are a bit more of I can't be bothered to go to the big supermarket. If I just need milk and bread, I'll go to the corner shop. EV charging is headed the same way. The big hubs, the big players, the little ones will fall by the wayside and the expensive ones will. So in the short term, the bigger CPOs are likely to raise prices even further, I'm predicting more price rises. But that way they end up with a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that was the primary cause of the collapse of the Roman Empire. That reached a point where the greedy rich were milking the system way beyond its capacity, and it could no longer be financed by the poor people they created. History is an amazing thing. If the larger CPOs continue to raise prices and extract every penny and cent they can, people will simply turn more and more to the alternatives. Many will hate Elon for what he's doing and what he is, but half-price EV public charging is a powerful magnet, especially in hard times. Well, the race is on, and that's a fascinating spectacle. You see, because the EV industry operates in real slow motion, months and years, unlike the financial market, which works in seconds and hours and days, the private equity companies and pension funds all piled in big time when the prices for EV charging were pretty much at the peak, and at a time when Tesla was closely guarding their exclusivity. They knew, or at least believed, that Tesla could not expand fast enough to meet the full demand, and they also believed that Tesla would never ever release its monopoly on the Supercharger network to the general public. They thought they had it made, and they saw a really bright, rosy future was on the cards. But now, a few years later, they're beginning to realise that their greed has no basis in reality. Customers are now charging at Tesla Open to all chargers in massive numbers. Others are seeking out discounts and memberships. Many of them simply put money ahead of morals or ethics. Tesla bad, Elon bad, but yum, really cheap charging. Well, the supermarkets are coming in and are undercutting them already, and with even lower prices to come in the future. Then there's the other future, with every single PV and wind farm, both existing and yet to be built, adding massive EV hubs, each with hundreds of chargers, buying their electricity at rock-bottom commercial prices and selling it heavily discounted. The first of those are already here and open for business at a really cheap 39 pence per kilowatt hour. It's not looking good for the private equity and pension funds propping up the totally artificial high prices of the dearest EV public chargers. Their current profits from their huge investments into the EV public charging markets are already struggling, and that struggle will intensify. Without profits, the private investors will pull out their funds. The private equity and investment companies will fail to attract new investors. House of Cards rings a bell? How much longer can they survive? It's slow motion, but it's just like the three-toed sloth. It does eventually get there, slowly but surely. I'm Dave. So it seems you like the channel. Maybe you'd like to support us some more. Our YouTube membership starts at just £1.99, and that will get you access to loyalty badges, customer emoji, and members-only shorts. For a little more, you get behind-the-scenes photo updates, members-only videos, and member shout-out. And our most loyal supporters get member-only polls to help shape the channel direction. Also early access to new videos and priority reply to comments. We'll also still be running our Patreon page, thank you very much all the existing members, where we post behind-the-scenes content and have an active community chat. And on the occasions we do channel meetups, we'll be communicating them to our loyal supporters.